Right now, millions of tiny cells in the human body are breaking one of the most fundamental laws of physics, and scientists have finally caught them in the act. We're talking about human sperm. Yes, those cells, and they're doing something that Isaac Newton would have said was impossible. Stay with me, because this discovery is about to blow your mind. Before we dive into this wild discovery, let's set the stage. You probably remember Newton's third law from high school physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Push against a wall. The wall pushes back with equal force. Throw a ball. Your hand feels the backward push. It's one of the most reliable rules in the entire universe. Or is it? In October 2023, a team of scientists led by mathematician Kenta Ishimoto at Kyoto University published research that turned this assumption upside down. They discovered that human sperm cells, along with certain types of algae, have found a loophole in Newton's laws. These microscopic swimmers are doing something that should be physically impossible, and it all has to do with how they move through sticky fluids. Today, we're going to break down exactly what these scientists found, why it matters, and how this discovery could revolutionize everything from medicine to robotics. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never think about biology the same way again. Alright, let's start with the basics. Newton's third law is all about symmetry. When two forces interact, they're always equal and opposite. Think of it like a perfectly balanced conversation. You say something, you get an equal response. Here's a simple example. Imagine you're ice skating and you push off against a wall. You go backward, right? That's because the wall is pushing you with the same force you applied to it. Or picture two pool balls colliding. When they hit, both balls rebound based on equal and opposite forces. This law works beautifully in our everyday, macro-scale world. Engineers use it to design cars, rockets, and bridges. It's so fundamental that physicists call it a conservation law, meaning energy and momentum are always conserved in these interactions. But here's where things get weird. Newton formulated these laws in 1686 based on objects he could see and measure. Apples falling from trees, planets orbiting the sun, cannonballs flying through the air. He had no way to observe what was happening at the microscopic level, in the realm of cells and molecules. And as it turns out, when you zoom down to that scale, particularly when you're dealing with living organisms moving through thick viscous fluids, the rules start to get bendy. So here's the problem that puzzled scientists: how do sperm cells swim? Now you might be thinking, what's the mystery? They just wiggle their tails and move forward, right? Well, yes. But according to Newton's third law, that shouldn't work the way it does. Think about how you swim in a pool. You push water backward, and the water pushes you forward. That's Newton's third law in action. But sperm aren't swimming through water. They're moving through cervical mucus, which is incredibly thick and sticky. Imagine trying to swim through honey, or syrup, or even wet cement. The viscous fluid should resist every movement, dissipating the sperm's energy with each tail whip. In physics terms, when the sperm's tail, called a flagellum, bends and waves to propel the cell forward, the surrounding fluid should create an equal and opposite force that resists that movement. The sperm should lose massive amounts of energy with each wiggle, making forward progress nearly impossible. But here's the crazy thing. They don't. Sperm cells move through these sticky fluids with surprising ease, almost like they're gliding, and they're not alone. Single-celled algae, called Chlamydomonas, do the same thing. This is what the Kyoto University team set out to investigate. They analyzed experimental data on human sperm and created detailed mathematical models of these cells' movements. They also studied chlamydomonas algae because both organisms use similar whip-like flagella to swim. What they discovered was something called non-reciprocal interactions. Basically, movements that don't follow the typical action-reaction pattern. The sperm's flagella were somehow avoiding the equal and opposite reaction that Newton's law predicts. So, what's the secret? How do sperm and algae break Newton's law? The answer lies in something the researchers called odd elasticity. Let me explain this in simple terms. Most elastic materials, think of a rubber band or a spring, store energy when you bend them. then release that energy equally in all directions when they snap back. That's normal, or even elasticity. It follows Newton's laws perfectly. But the flagella on sperm cells and algae have a different kind of elasticity. When they bend and wave, they do something asymmetric. They release energy in a way that doesn't create the equal and opposite reaction you'd expect. Instead of pushing against the fluid and getting pushed back, the flagella bend in a specific pattern that allows them to slip through without losing much energy. Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to move through a crowded room. If you push straight forward, people push back and you get stuck. But if you twist and turn your body in a snake-like motion, you can weave through without creating much resistance. That's kind of what sperm are doing, but at a molecular level. The research team quantified this with something they called the odd elastic modulus, basically a number that describes how good a flagellum is at this energy-saving bending. The higher the odd elasticity score, the better the cell can move forward without the fluid fighting back. But here's where it gets even more interesting. These cells generate their own energy through biological processes. They're not just passive objects being pushed around. Every time a sperm cell's tail whips, it's adding new energy to the system. This keeps the system far from equilibrium, which is the balanced state where Newton's laws work perfectly. In physics, equilibrium is when everything is stable and predictable. But living systems are messy, chaotic, and constantly powered by internal energy. And in those conditions, the rules can bend. The researchers found that this same principle applies to other active matter systems, things like flocking birds that all generate their own energy, and move in ways that seem to defy simple physics. It's not that Newton was wrong, his laws still work for most things, but at the microscopic level with self-powered biological systems, nature has found creative loopholes. Okay, so sperm cells have found a physics loophole. That's cool, but why should you care? Well, this discovery has some pretty incredible implications. First, medicine and fertility. Understanding exactly how sperm swim could help us develop better treatments for infertility. If we know what makes a healthy sperm cell such an efficient swimmer, we might be able to diagnose problems more accurately or even develop new fertility treatments. Scientists could potentially identify sperm with higher odd elasticity scores as being more viable for fertilization. Second, and this is where it gets really sci-fi, robotics. The research team specifically mentioned that their findings could help design small, self-assembling robots that mimic living materials. Imagine tiny robots that could navigate through the human body to deliver medicine, or clean out clogged arteries, or target cancer cells. These micro-robots would need to move through viscous fluids like blood without requiring massive amounts of energy. By copying the odd elasticity of sperm flagella, engineers could create more efficient micro-machines. Third, this research opens up a whole new field of study. The mathematical models the team developed can be applied to any closed-loop system, basically, any repeating biological motion. That means we could use these techniques to understand everything from how bacteria move, to how cells divide, to how materials self-assemble at the molecular level. And finally, there's just the pure wonder of it. This discovery reminds us that nature is still full of surprises. Isaac Newton laid out the fundamental laws of motion over 300 years ago, and they've served us incredibly well, but biology has been quietly breaking these rules all along, right under our noses, or, well, inside our bodies. Life, it turns out, is weirder and more creative than we ever imagined, and every cell in your body might be performing little physics miracles that we're only just beginning to understand. Let's zoom out for a moment. This sperm discovery is part of a larger revolution happening in physics right now. For centuries, physics focused on predictable equilibrium systems, things like planets orbiting the sun or pendulums swinging back and forth. These systems eventually settled down and become stable, and Newton's laws work perfectly for them. But in the past few decades, physicists have become increasingly fascinated by what they call far from equilibrium or active matter systems. These are systems that are constantly powered by internal energy, never settling down, always in motion. Think about flocking birds, schools of fish, traffic jams, even crowds of people. These systems create their own complex behaviors that can't be predicted by classical physics alone. Sperm cells and microscopic swimmers fall into this category. They're not passive objects, they're active agents, generating energy and moving in ways that create new physics. The researchers studying sperm discovered what they call odd elasticity, but this is just one example of many odd properties showing up in active matter. There's also odd viscosity in fluids that rotate and other strange behaviors that don't fit the classical mold. What's really exciting is that these discoveries aren't just academic curiosities. Understanding active matter could help us create new materials, design better robots, understand collective behavior, like how ants build colonies or how our own immune cells coordinate to fight disease. In a way, this research is revealing that life itself operates on a different set of rules than the non-living world. Not completely different, Newton's laws still apply in many situations, but with creative exceptions that make life possible. And that's what makes this so profound. Every time a sperm cell fertilizes an egg, starting a new human life, it's doing so by exploiting a loophole in the laws of physics. Your very existence began with cells that broke Newton's rules. So there you have it. Human sperm cells aren't just swimming toward their destination, they're bending the rules of physics to get there. Through their unique odd elasticity, these microscopic cells have found a way to move through impossibly thick fluids without losing energy to their surroundings, essentially creating non-reciprocal interactions that Newton's third law says shouldn't exist. But as we've seen, nature doesn't always play by the rules we write for it, and that's what makes science so thrilling. Every answer leads to 10 new questions. Every discovery reveals how much we still don't know. The next time someone tells you that everything in science is already figured out, remember this: we only just discovered that the cells responsible for creating human life have been breaking the laws of physics all along. What else are we missing? What other miracles are happening right now, too small or too strange for us to notice? Science isn't about having all the answers, it's about asking better questions. And sometimes those questions lead us to realize that life itself is far more extraordinary than we ever imagined. So what do you think? Does this discovery blow your mind, like it did mine? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed learning about this weird intersection of biology and physics, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Mind and Marvel for more mind-bending science content. Stay curious, stay amazed, and remember, sometimes the most incredible things in the universe are happening at a scale we can barely see. Thanks for watching.